we need to talk about this coming offseason, because this is going to be, at least to me, Matt, and I'll be interested to hear how you feel about this. This is the year the Jets have been building towards since they hired Joe Douglas. This is the offseason that you traded Jamal Adams for. This is the reason you got rid of Sam Darnold when you did. This is the year that I think we're going to see Joe Douglas specifically be more aggressive and try and add pieces to this team to be impact players, to try and improve the quality of the roster, build things up, make a playoff push. You don't got to be perfect. There's a lot of holes on this team. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but I think they're going to be more aggressive than we've seen in years past, because I think this is the time frame. Zach Wilson will be going into the second year. You're hoping he makes a second year leap. He's still got 3+ years before you got to worry about paying him. And you have time to bring in some talented players through free agency and the draft, or be aggressive and potentially trade draft picks for veterans and get away with it, because the only guys that you really have to worry about extending soon is Quinnen. Mm-hmm. Other than Quinnen, there really isn't anybody right now that we're freaking out worrying about shaking loose. There's still time that has to be seen. Obviously, we would hope that Mekhi can come back healthy next year. I don't really want him to come back this year and risk anything, but hope that he can come back healthy and play his way into a top deal. But right now, you're not looking at any future contracts, and you have a rookie quarterback that's going to keep you on a cheap rookie contract. You got money to play with, as well as the draft pick ammo that you have. I think this is going to be a really aggressive offseason.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the best way to help Zach have that second year leap in production is to put a better team around him. I think JD's done an admirable job getting enough offensive weapons between Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Carter, that he's got a nice base there. Now he just needs to build on that. And that will definitely help Zach out. But everybody's thinking defense, though, right? This is one of the worst defenses in the league, if not the worst. So everybody's thinking, how can we figure out this defense, right? The offense looks okay, but I really want to caution people that we cannot forget about the offense. This is still an offensive league. We need to have that offense buzzing if we really want to have long-term success. Because you know what? The defense is always going to get banged up, and defense is always going to get calls against them, because that's what the league is. It's just going to be flags against the defense because they want offenses to be high scoring. So we need to join that club and be a high scoring offense. So yes, bring in players to help our defense, but also reamp that offense to keep it strong for more than just a year.
Yeah, I completely and totally agree with you. I just had a piece come out on Jets X Factor yesterday, actually, where it was talking about the history of the Pete Carroll defense and all the teams that have played it and what Robert Saleh is trying to replicate. And going through the numbers, even it surprised me. Even I really wasn't expecting to see what I found, but the few constants that I saw between the few teams that were able to reach the top of the league, crack a top 5 defense playing this scheme since 2013, when it really exploded. You have the Seahawks and the Legion of Boom, who did it for 4 straight years, and no one else did it more than 2. And you look at those teams, the 2 teams that did it were outside of the Seahawks were the Jags and the 49ers. And they did it for 2 straight years back to back. And then they really started to fall off. It's a little early to see what's going to happen in the 49ers, but the Jags defense took a nosedive. They went from 5th to 24th in 1 year, and they were 31st the year after that. The Seahawks went from 4 straight years in the top 5 and 2 straight at number 1, and then 1 year at number 2 to 11th, 16th, and 26th. This scheme, it needs that elite talent to play off, and which is what we're saying. This team needs more talent. But I'm going to tell you what, Matt, I completely and totally agree with you that you can't forget about the offense, because the other constant amongst those defenses was a good offense. This scheme is built to play with a lead. This scheme is built to play against teams that want to throw the ball and need to play catch up. It's not built to stop teams that can ground and pound and run the clock out, as the Jets have seen this year. So if they don't have the offense that can get out to a lead and generate points and put the defense in position to where the game is in their hands more to start with, it could get really ugly. If you look at the 2014 Seahawks, the 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars, and the 2019 San Francisco 49ers, those are the three best years of each of those defenses. And you look at where their offense was ranked in those same years and average them all together, the average offensive ranking was sixth in the NFL. Sixth in the NFL. So was it these defenses playing that great, or was it the offenses giving the defenses chances to play that great? There's a direct correlation with defenses falling in this scheme and offenses getting worse. The 49ers and Jaguars, and the year they were great, the Jaguars offense was ranked sixth. The 49ers offense was ranked fourth. The next year, the Jaguars defense was ranked fifth. Their offense was ranked like 21st. The 49ers offense went from fourth to 15th. Their defense took a hit as well. This is what we've seen. The Seahawks offense, same thing. Their offense went from being top 5 with Russell Wilson to hovering around 11 or 12. But quite honestly, I think the only reason the Seahawks were able to stay good for that long was because Russell Wilson was that consistently good. They didn't have to worry about teams getting up on them because they knew they had Russell Wilson to keep them in the game. So I'm looking at it from this angle. You got to attack both sides of the ball. You got to attack offense and defense. And I think the way you do that is you pick one side, and that's the side you spend on in free agency, and you pick the other side, and that's the side you focus on in the draft. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. Matt, I want to know where you would focus your money in free agency and where you would focus your draft picks.
See, I would do not the exact opposite. I would make it even across the board. Offense, defense, and free agency, offense, defense, in the draft. Because you have to look at what the strengths are of the draft. Right now, I see that as safety. I see that as tight end. I see a strong edge group, although it is a little top heavy. A strong level cornerback group, although also top heavy.
Yep.
And then inside offensive linemen. So these are all positions that we need.
Yes, they are.
And they're all strengths of the draft. So I would like to focus on those in the draft for sure. Therefore, I wouldn't want to put all my eggs in free agency on those positions. So I would look at what are the weaknesses. I would say wide receivers, very top heavy. There's probably some gems throughout the draft, but for the most part, the guys that you really want are at the top of the draft. And if we really do need another wide receiver, but at the same time, wide receiver in free agency is a little expensive. So that's probably not where JD wants to spend money, especially after spending on Corey Davis. So that might lead us to maybe go wide receiver early in the draft, because guess what? That's where the talent is for wide receiver. And at the same time, we won't have to really spend that much. And therefore, we can push some of the strengths to later in the draft, like safety or interior offensive line. We also have 2 first-round picks, so we can maybe play around a little bit. I want to definitely improve our interior offensive line, whether it's right guard or center, or doing both at the same time, which, my favorite guy for our first pick is probably Lindenbaum. And
yeah,
there's lots of arguments to go around about whether we should take a center in the top 10 or not. And I think a lot of the arguments are around, well, no center has been taken in the top 10 before. And that is true. No center has been taken that high. And I'd like to say, well, if we did take Lindenbaum in the top 10 and he ends up playing like Mangold or Mawai, would anybody care that we took him in the top 10? I don't think anyone would care. And if you look at our playoff teams going back to 1990s, the late 90s, we always had an elite center on our offensive line. They're the anchor of our offensive line. And maybe even more important now because they're calling the protections. It's not Zach. And maybe I didn't really look that much when Flacco was in there. Was McGovern still calling protections?
From what I could see on a down-to-down basis, he was, but Flacco was a lot more in control of the offense and alerted and killed a lot more plays than Zach does. That is, I think that's just veteran experience.
Okay,
That's
it makes sense.
Flacco being able to sit there and read a play and have a feeling for a defense more so than Zach would as his rookie season. But I didn't see the protection calls outright change because I quite honestly, Flacco was getting the ball out really quick too. So there really wasn't much of an opportunity for the rush to get there anyway.
Of course. And at the same time, Connor McGovern has done a pretty good job. He's made a great leap from last year to this year. Pro Football Focus definitely has a very good grade on him this year. But there are a lot of things that sort of get missed, a lot of context that's not brought up, which are those protections. There's been a lot of free rushers this year. And a lot of that goes to McGovern's protection calls and his ability to communicate with the guys around him. And he has definitely faltered in this area. And it's shown throughout the year. And maybe he's led to Zach maybe developing some of these bad habits. Now, is he serviceable? Yeah. Could he be a decent center for us? Yeah, I think so. I think he'll only improve in these communication areas as he gets more familiar with the guys around him. So, yes, we can stick with Connor McGovern, and maybe we do. But I want JD to be very decisive here. If he thinks McGovern is the future, he needs to secure McGovern for the future. Extend him maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe even more. Because if you're going to do a half measure and just keep him around and let his contract expire, then I don't think it's worth, using him as an excuse not to draft the future. And I don't think there's any better future than Lindenbaum. He's the perfect fit for our offense. He's got the perfect balance of strength and athletic ability. He would be perfect for a wide zone offense. And he's got the nastiness and the strength to really be a bully next to guys like AVT and Becton and Fant. So he's got everything that you would want to be our anchor for the next 10 plus years. And I would have no problem taking him in the top 10, because if he pans out the way that we think that he'll pan out, then nobody will care about that.